30 years ago, Blinds.com broke the mold and made custom window treatments easy for everyone. Over 25 million windows later, we're celebrating by giving our customers up to 50% off site-wide during our anniversary sale. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, Blinds.com has you covered. Shop online, access real design professionals, and get free samples. Thank you for 30 amazing years. Shop the anniversary sale now through March 11th and get up to 50% off site-wide at Blinds.com.
On Aspire with Emma Grede, I sit down with people who don't just dream big, they build big. From Mark Cuban to Mel Robbins, we talk about mindset, ambition, and the work that actually moves the needle. Listen to Aspire with me, Emma Grede, an Odyssey podcast available now.
The boy arrived during a thunderstorm. Dr. Nathaniel Gibson would remember that detail for the rest of his life. Storms were common in the hills surrounding the Longfellow Institute. The building itself had been constructed in the 1920s in the bones of an old sanatorium, its stone walls permanently damp, its corridors carrying whispers of water even when the sky was clear. But that night, the rain came down like nails. The ambulance doors opened. 2 orderlies stepped out with a stretcher, and on it lay the smallest murderer Dr. Gibson had ever seen. The boy's name was Harold Hughes. 6 years old, he had killed his parents and a babysitter with a kitchen knife. The next day, he was delivered to Longfellow. Inside, the lobby smelled of bleach and wet wool. Nurse Delaney stood behind the desk, her fingers twisting together as she watched the stretcher pass. "Is that him?" she whispered. Dr. Gibson removed his coat and hung it carefully. Yes. Harold Hughes was small for his age. Thin arms, knees poking through hospital pajamas. His hair hung in pale strands over his forehead. His eyes were open. But he wasn't crying. He wasn't afraid. He simply stared upward at the ceiling as if studying cracks in the plaster. The orderlies rolled him toward the elevator. The 5th floor. The locked ward. Longfellow Institute housed patients the rest of the country preferred not to acknowledge. Murderers, cannibals, worse. Dr. Gibson had spent 12 years studying minds like these. Theories, patterns, trauma, neurological abnormalities. He believed most monsters were simply broken people. Most. The elevator rattled upward. Inside stood Dr. Gibson, the 2 orderlies, and the boy. One of the orderlies leaned down. "Hey there, kid. You know where you are?" Harold did not answer. The orderly chuckled nervously. "Guess you're a little shy, huh?" The elevator reached the 5th floor, the doors opened, and the screaming began. Room 514. Patient, Leonard Cray. Age, 34. Diagnosis, violent delusional psychosis. Cray had been calm all evening, sitting quietly in the common room, humming to himself while drawing circles on newspaper with a crayon. But the moment the elevator door opened, he began pounding on his door. "No! No! No!" The staff froze. Cray's voice climbed into a shriek. "Don't let him in here!" A nurse hurried past the room. "Mr. Cray, settle down." But the man slammed his fist against the glass. Blood streaked the window. His eyes were wide with animal terror. "He's here! He's here!" The orderlies exchanged looks. Dr. Gibson said calmly, "Sedate him." A nurse hurried off. The stretcher rolled down the hall. Cray's screaming followed them the entire way. Harold Hughes was placed in room 517. Observation status, no restraints. Dr. Gibson preferred to watch before acting. The boy sat on the bed, still silent, still staring. Dr. Gibson pulled up a chair. Rain tapped against the narrow window. "Harold?" No response. "My name is Dr. Gibson. I'm going to help you, Harold." The boy's head tilted slightly. For the first time, his eyes met Gibson's. There was something wrong with them. Not anger, not confusion, just stillness. The kind of stillness you saw in deep water. Do you know why you're here, Harold? Silence. The police say that you hurt your parents. Nothing. Gibson waited. Minutes passed. Finally, Gibson stood. We'll talk tomorrow. Good night, Harold. The next morning, Nurse Delaney refused to enter room 517. She stood outside the door, gripping a clipboard. You go in first. Dr. Gibson raised an eyebrow. Is everything all right, Miss Delaney? Her voice dropped. He watches me. Of course he watches you, Dr. Gibson told her. He's a patient. She shook her head. No, doctor. He watches like his eyes are everywhere. No matter where I am in the room, I can feel his eyes on me. Gibson sighed. You must be a professional, Miss Delaney. It is our job to monitor them. She lowered her voice further. Easier said than done, doctor. Cray hasn't stopped crying since last night. That gave Gibson pause. Bring me the reports. 3 patients had experienced disturbances during the night. Leonard Cray, hysteria. Margaret Voss, night terrors. Thomas Keller, violent panic attack. All occurring between 2:10 and 2:30 a.m., the exact time Harold Hughes had been brought upstairs. Coincidences happened in psychiatric wards, frequently. Still, Gibson reviewed the notes twice. Then he walked to room 517. Harold sat on the floor, drawing. Good morning, Harold, Gibson said. Do you remember my name? No answer. What are you drawing, Harold? Gibson knelt beside him. The paper showed a crude house, 3 stick figures, and a 4th figure standing outside, watching. Is that your home, Harold? Harold continued drawing, more lines, more shapes. Then he slid the paper toward Gibson. Gibson looked closer. The 3 figures inside the house had X's through their heads. It was only then that Gibson realized what Harold had been using to draw. It was not a crayon, nor a pen. It was blood. Blood from his fingertips, which had been bitten off. Harold remained silent. For the whole first week of his stay at the Longfellow Institute, Harold never spoke. Not once. And then there were additional disturbances. Small things at first. Patients refusing to sleep. Whispers about the boy upstairs. Margaret Voss claimed she saw him standing outside her room at night. Impossible. Harold's door was locked, yet she insisted. He was smiling, doctor. Smiling. Smiling. At me. Gibson dismissed the story, until he reviewed the security locks. At 2:17 a.m., Harold's door alarm had briefly triggered, then stopped. When nurses checked the room, he was sitting on the bed, exactly where he had been left. One evening, Gibson conducted a longer session. Harold sat across from him, legs dangling from the chair. Do you miss your parents, Harold? The boy did not move. Do you remember what happened to them that night, Harold, when you killed them? Harold stared at the wall clock. Tick, tick, tick.
Let's just listen to you.
Gibson leaned forward. Did you say something, Harold? Gibson could have sworn he heard something, but it was not from Harold. The voice, low but harsh, seemed to slide around the room. Harold's voice remained motionless as the voices inside Gibson's head seemed to scream. The voices became violent. Gibson's ears began to ring. He stood up, telling Harold to stop. Stop it, Harold! Nurse Delaney charged into the room, asking him what was wrong. Gibson's words were garbled. All he could do was collapse out into the hallway before he pointed towards the room and told Nurse Delaney to close Harold's door. She did as he instructed, and then the voices stopped.
30 years ago, Blinds.com broke the mold and made custom window treatments easy for everyone. Over 25 million windows later, we're celebrating by giving our customers up to 50% off site-wide during our anniversary sale. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, Blinds.com has you covered. Shop online, access real design professionals, and get free samples. Thank you for 30 amazing years. Shop the anniversary sale now through March 11th and get up to 50% off site-wide at Blinds.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Radner, and I am so excited to tell you about How We Made Your Mother, a rewatch podcast looking back at How I Met Your Mother. And I'm here with Craig Thomas, who co-created the show along with Carter Bays. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Josh. Somehow it has been 20 years since the show premiered. I'm going to check the math on that. 10 years since it went off the air, and we thought that made this a perfect time to look back, see what the hell we did, and why the show still seems to resonate with fans around the world today.
Follow and listen to How We Made Your Mother wherever you get your podcasts.
The worst incident occurred in late October. Patient Thomas Keller, former accountant, convicted of dismembering his neighbor. Keller had spent 2 quiet years at Longfellow, until one night he began screaming. Orderlies rushed in. They found Keller curled in the corner of his room, clawing at his own face. "Get him out!" "Who?" Nurse Delaney asked. Keller pointed down the hallway towards room 517. "The boy!" They sedated Keller. Before he lost consciousness, he whispered something that chilled the nurse beyond her limits of rational thinking. "He told me what I'm going to do tomorrow." Nurse Delaney asked what he meant by that. But before an answer could be given, Keller fell back asleep. The overhead light above her burst. She clutched her chest and screamed. Dr. Gibson reviewed Keller's file repeatedly. There was no evidence Harold had spoken to him, no opportunity to be more precise. At no point were they ever in the same room. All of Harold's social interactions were with Dr. Gibson and Dr. Gibson alone. He had no additional family who came to visit. The story of Harold killing his parents had been largely swept under the rug by the people of Hardinville, the town where Harold came from. It appeared, through Dr. Gibson's research, that those in power did not want this story leaking out towards their precious little town. That's how Dr. Gibson began to view Hardinville, as some precious little town who wanted to deny the truth. The truth known as Harold Hughes. The next day, Keller attempted to strangle an orderly during breakfast. They tried to sedate him, yet Keller seemed to somehow rise above the medicine piercing through his body. The orderly was on the verge of death when the security guard finally showed up to slam a chair across the back of Keller's neck, rendering him immobile just long enough for every orderly on staff to rush in and tie him up like a caged beast. Which is what he was, Gibson realized. It was what they all were. A different species. A species that seemed to be welcoming a new poison that had entered their shared space. Gibson knew the source of this poison. He told himself the extended sessions were clinical necessity, not obsession. If Harold would not speak, then observation would have to suffice. The boy remained restrained more as a precaution than a requirement, his small wrists resting loosely in leather cuffs, his posture composed, his eyes unwavering. Gibson filled the silence with theory, with language, with frameworks meant to corner the unsayable. Harold listened. He always listened, but he never spoke. There were other, even more alarming qualities about Harold that issued nightmares. It was Nurse Delaney who first noticed the other pattern. She had drawn the overnight rotation that week, which meant long stretches of dim corridors and the low electrical hum of floor 5, settling into its counterfeit version of sleep. Around 2 a.m, she began reviewing routine surveillance footage, more out of restlessness than suspicion. The monitor displayed a grainy, green-tinted view of room 517. Harold lay in bed, covers pulled neatly to his chest. The chart noted that he had been administered a mild sedative at 11 p.m. By all reasonable expectations, he should have been deeply asleep. Delaney leaned closer to the screen, trying to get a better look at Harold. His eyes were open. Not fluttering, not adjusting to darkness, open. She checked the timestamp, 1:23 a.m. She rewound the footage to midnight. Harold had not moved. The rise and fall of his chest was minimal, almost imperceptible, but steady enough to confirm he was alive. His gaze was fixed upward, unblinking, as though studying something only he could see on the ceiling. Delaney let the footage run forward at quadruple speed. 1 a.m., 1:45, 2:30, no shift, no roll to his side, no involuntary twitch of dreaming. At 3:07 a.m., the overhead light outside his room flickered. Harold's eyes shifted instantly towards the door. Not sluggish, not drowsy, instant. Delaney felt a cold ripple across her scalp. She checked the prior nights, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Every recording told the same story. From the moment the lights dimmed until morning rounds, Harold remained awake. Perfectly still, perfectly alert. The sedatives were registered in his bloodstream, the lab results confirmed absorption, and yet his brain appeared untouched by them. When Dr. Gibson arrived that morning, she was waiting. "He doesn't sleep," she told him, her voice tight but controlled. Gibson reviewed the footage himself, jaw set, eyes narrowing with each passing minute of stillness. "Everyone sleeps," he replied, though without conviction. "He doesn't," Delaney said. "Not once. Not for a second." Gibson did not document the anomaly. There was no clinical language for what they were witnessing that would not invite ridicule or administrative interference. Instead, he ordered increased monitoring and assigned an orderly to conduct hourly walkthroughs of Floor 5 overnight. Physical verification to accompany the cameras. A human presence, something grounding. The orderly assigned to the new rotation was Carl Shapiro. Carl was 31, broad-shouldered, steady, the kind of man who whistled softly while refilling ice bins. He had worked on other floors without incident. Floor 5 unsettled him, though he would not admit that out loud. On his fourth consecutive overnight, at approximately 2:41 a.m., Carl completed his standard circuit and approached 517 last. The hallway camera captured him clearly. He stepped outside Harold's door. At first, nothing appeared unusual. He adjusted the clipboard beneath his arm and leaned slightly toward the observation window. And then, he went still. Not the casual stillness of someone listening, a deeper kind. His shoulders slackened, his chin lifted a fraction. His gaze fixed on the door itself rather than the window. The timestamp rolled forward. 2:44, 2:51, 3:02. Carl did not move. He did not scratch his face or shift his weight. His breathing slowed visibly beneath the thin fabric of his scrubs. Inside 517, Harold lay in bed, eyes open, facing the door. At 3:37, Nurse Delaney noticed Carl had not checked in. She radioed him. No response. She pulled up the live hallway feed and felt her mouth go dry at the sight of him standing rigid beneath the fluorescent lights. She and another nurse reached him quickly. "Carl," she said firmly, stepping into his line of light. No reaction. His pupils were wide, glassy, focused somewhere beyond the surface of the wood. Delaney touched his forearm. His skin was cool. After several long seconds, he inhaled sharply, blinking as if emerging from underwater. Carl stared at the door, confusion flickering across his face. "I was just checking the room." "You were staring at it, Carl," Nurse Delaney said. "Why?" Carl smiled. His gums were bleeding. "You have a good day now, Miss Delaney." He finished the shift, though his hands trembled when he signed out. He declined medical evaluation, said he was just tired, said it was nothing. Carl Shapiro did not report for his next shift. By noon the following day, word had spread quietly through the hospital that Carl had been found in his apartment. No note. He used an extension cord tied to exposed beam in his bedroom ceiling and hung himself.
That's just isn't you.
30 years ago, Blinds.com broke the mold and made custom window treatments easy for everyone. Over 25 million windows later, we're celebrating by giving our customers up to 50% off site-wide during our anniversary sale. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, Blinds.com has you covered. Shop online, access real design professionals, and get free samples. Thank you for 30 amazing years. Shop the anniversary sale now through March 11th and get up to 50% off site-wide at Blinds.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Radner, and I am so excited to tell you about How We Made Your Mother, a rewatch podcast looking back at How I Met Your Mother. And I'm here with Craig Thomas, who co-created the show along with Carter Bays. Hi, Craig.
Hey, Josh. Somehow it has been 20 years since the show premiered. I'm going to check the math on that. 10 years since it went off the air. And we thought that made this a perfect time to look back, see what the hell we did, and why the show still seems to resonate with fans around the world today.
Follow and listen to How We Made Your Mother wherever you get your podcasts.
Dr. Gibson stood in his office staring at the wall when he received the call. He felt no shock, only confirmation. Something was radiating outward from 517, not in spectacle, not in overt violence, but increments, in proximity, in attention. That evening, he extended his session with Harold again. Harold sat across from him, wrists loosely bound, eyes steady. "You don't sleep," Gibson said. "Is that true, Harold? You do not sleep? That's what the doctors would call a medical marvel. You are a very special boy, Harold. Do you know that?" Harold did not respond, nor did Gibson think he would. "What are you waiting for, Harold? You can tell me. It will be our little secret. Go on. Tell me." The boy, as always, did not move. Fridays had died a long time ago. Dr. Gibson parked in the empty lot of the Longfellow Institute and noticed the shadows under the streetlights seemed longer, more deliberate. He stepped inside and the familiar antiseptic sting of the hallways hit him. But wrong. It was slightly sweeter, like metal and sugar, and it made his tongue itch. In the nurse's station, Nurse Delaney was already on edge. She hadn't even looked at him yet. "I'm putting in my 2 weeks," she said, voice tight, knuckles white around her clipboard. Her eyes darted through the hallway mirrors as if expecting them to blink first. "Why?" Dr. Gibson asked, trying for calm. "It's happening again," she whispered. Her hand shook as she twisted the edge of her ID badge. "The nightmares, I can't." Dr. Gibson was never off the clock at the Longfellow Institute. He was now everyone's therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, watcher on the wall. The classification of his position changed by the hour depending on who he was talking to. "Tell me about the nightmares, Miss Delaney." She paused, swallowed, and then spilled it all. "I was standing in the day room, but it wasn't the day room. It was the roof. And the patients, they were climbing the walls like insects. Their faces, Dr. Gibson. Their faces. I saw mine in the glass, but it was wrong. I walked out, barefoot, and when I woke up, I was in the storage closet, under the linen cart. I had mud in my hair. I don't remember walking there." Dr. Gibson reached for the small bottle of sedatives in his pocket. "You need this, Nurse Delaney," he said, pressing it into her hand. She shook her head violently. "No, I can't. If I take it, I'll stop noticing. I need to remember." Her voice broke, a whisper only for him. "The walls, Dr. Gibson. I hear them when I close my eyes." He noticed the patient's wheelchair sitting askew in the hallway. It hadn't been there before, and it rocked slightly on its own. The nurses smiled at him, wide, practiced smiles, but their eyes lingered too long, calculating, aware. He passed the cafeteria. The smell of the food was off, but he couldn't name how. Cinnamon and rotting lettuce, vanilla and something acrid, all at once. He coughed and they all watched him, waiting for what exactly, he wondered. In the therapy room, he noticed the clock. The hands twitched, not smoothly, but in tiny jumps, like it was stuttering to catch up. A patient passed behind him, humming a lullaby he didn't recognize. The tune seemed wrong somehow, familiar but warped. By noon, even the walls had begun to betray him. Tiles shimmered and shifted under his gaze, edges softening and then snapping back, like the building itself had been exhaling. The corners of the ceiling stretched, then receded, and for a moment he thought the lights were breathing. He walked past Nurse Delaney again. She was arranging syringes with unnerving precision, then paused, smiling at him without speaking, as if she knew something he didn't. In the staff lounge, the coffee smelled like burnt hair. He set his mug down, hands trembling, and realized the chairs were not the chairs he remembered. They leaned slightly inward, conspiratorial, like they were holding secrets he wasn't supposed to see. Even the sunlight felt wrong. Through the windows, the trees leaned at angles impossible for their species, casting shadows like clawed hands across the linoleum floors. For hours he wandered, each step dissonant, each corridor whispering. No violence, no screams, just the uncanny sensation that Longfellow was waking up, stretching out of itself, watching him. And Harold. Harold's absence was the worst part, because he knew the boy was somewhere smiling behind corners that shouldn't exist. By the end of the day, Dr. Gibson was exhausted, stomach churning with a dread he could not name. The institute had changed, or maybe he had. He looked at the clock again. The hands had stopped. Christoph kept his office warmer than the rest of the building. It was the first thing Gibson noticed each time he stepped inside. That faint, deliberate heat, as if the room were meant to lull its occupants into a softened state. The air carried a trace of citrus polish. The bookshelves were arranged with obsessive symmetry. The blinds filtered the late afternoon light into narrow gold bands that cut across the carpet like a measured incision. Christoph looked up from his desk and smiled. "Dr. Gibson, come in. Close the door, won't you? You look tired." His tone was easy, supportive, the kind of voice that had likely soothed donors and grieving parents alike. Gibson shut the door and took the seat opposite him. The leather sighed beneath his weight. "Adjusting?" Christoph asked. "To our little world?" Gibson considered the question longer than he meant to. "It's unsettling, Mr. Simons. I know that is the job, but the job feels increasingly sunk." Christoph's eyes lifted slightly. "Sunk?" He leaned back in his chair, which creaked softly, almost thoughtfully. "What a marvelous word." The silence that followed felt measured rather than awkward. Christoph was studying him, not aggressively, not even obviously, but with the quiet patience of a man accustomed to watching others reveal themselves. "You're adapting well," Christoph said after a moment. "The staff speaks very highly of you. That's rare in a place like this." "Well, I'm doing the best I can," Gibson told him. "And your patients," Gibson exhaled, told him. "Some respond, some don't. It's usually in fragments." "Well," Christoph told him, "fragments are progress." "If you believe that," Gibson said with an air of exasperation. Christoph smiled, faint but knowing. He folded his hands together on the desk. "There is one patient I'd like to discuss, Dr. Gibson." Gibson felt something tighten in his chest before the name was spoken. He knew the patient. "Harold Hughes?" The room seemed to settle around them. "How are you finding him?" Christoph asked. Gibson hesitated. "No physical violence since intake?" "None," Christoph said, surprised. "No," Gibson told him, followed by a brief pause. "Towards you?" Gibson's gaze sharpened. "No. Harold rarely moves, and he never speaks, nor does he ever sleep." "Good," Christoph said, softly. Too softly. Gibson shifted in his chair. "May I ask, Dr. Simons, why you seem particularly interested in Harold?" Christoph smiled and did not falter. "Oh, well, I take an interest in all of our patients, Dr. Gibson." "With respect," Gibson replied carefully. "You don't call private meetings to discuss all of them. In fact, you are rarely here, if I may be so blunt." For the briefest moment, something flickered inside Christoph's eyes. He stood up, walked to the door, and closed it more firmly than he did before. The click of the latch sounded louder this time. When he returned to his desk, he did not sit immediately. Instead, he rested his hands on the back of his chair and regarded Gibson with open appraisal. "You're perceptive, Gibson," he said at last. "That is why I hired you." He lowered himself into his seat. "You're correct. Harold is very special." "In what sense?" Gibson asked. Christoph tilted his head slightly. "Tell me first, how are you finding our little world?" The repetition of the question unsettled Gibson more than the words themselves. "As I'm sure you can imagine, Dr. Simons, it's quite unsettling. And I speak for more than myself when I say we're beginning to suspect some of these patients are beyond help." Christoph's smile thinned. "Mission. You're wondering what our mission is." Gibson held his gaze. "Well, since you brought it up, Dr. Simons, yes, I am wondering what exactly are we trying to do here?" Christoph leaned forward slightly. "Well, Dr. Gibson, it is not to heal." The warmth in his voice drained, leaving something clean and almost clinical. "That notion, Dr. Gibson, is quaint, admirable, but it is also naive." Gibson felt his stomach turn. "You are correct, Dr. Gibson. They are beyond help, all of them, which is precisely what makes them so special." "Beyond help?" Gibson asked, his voice thinner now. "Isn't that why your father built this institution? To help them?" "Yes. The wickedness of their ways is beyond correcting. Our task is subtler. We make them believe we are on their side. We smile while they watch us. We nod while they think they've cornered us." Gibson felt sweat gather at the base of his spine. "Because when they escape, Dr. Gibson, there will be no faces attached to the bodies that they devour. Only flesh." The office felt smaller, the air thicker. Dr. Gibson leaned forward. "You mean we are training them to survive?" Christoph considered that. "Perhaps, Dr. Gibson. Or perhaps we are training them to remember." "Remember what?" Gibson asked. Christoph leaned in. His eyes seemed to glow when he said it. "Who we are." The silence pressed against Gibson's temples. "That's horrific," Gibson whispered. Christoph's eyes, now dark and bright all at once. "The end of times have begun, Dr. Gibson. It will not be quick. The gates of hell do not open all at once. They open one door at a time. The devil prefers it that way. He wants to play with his food." Gibson's pulse pounded into his ears. "Harold Hughes is one of Satan's finest creations." The words were delivered without flourish. "Your job, Dr. Gibson, is to monitor him every day, every hour, every minute. If you are not up to that task, Dr. Gibson, I will find someone who is. Think carefully, Dr. Gibson, because no one else can. Not like you. Not like us. We see them. And if we're lucky, they will see us too." Simons took a beat and then he leaned back, folding his hands neatly once more, as if life was slowly crawling back into his eyes. "It is a duty privilege and a curse. What do you say, Dr. Gibson? Will you help them make sure that they remember who we are?
30 years ago, Blinds.com broke the mold and made custom window treatments easy for everyone. Over 25 million windows later, we're celebrating by giving our customers up to 50% off site-wide during our anniversary sale. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, Blinds.com has you covered. Shop online, access real design professionals, and get free samples. Thank you for 30 amazing years. Shop the anniversary sale now through March 11th and get up to 50% off site-wide at Blinds.com.
Life can feel overwhelming, but on my podcast, From the Heart with Rachel Braithen, we're in it together. Every Friday, a new episode brings you a new story with topics on motherhood, wellness, self-love, and more. Listen to From the Heart with Rachel Braithen wherever you get your podcasts.
Harold grew. Boy at first, pale and quiet, curling into corners where no one could reach him. New faces appeared, nervous, polished, and gone within months. The walls never stopped moving. Nurse Delaney was replaced by Nurse Robbins, who lasted only 2 days. She never spoke of what she saw, only shivered in the hallways, eyes wide, fingers twitching at the edge of memory. The turnover for nurses was rampant. Most would not last more than a week. Dr. Gibson brought in Dr. Gear to be an extra set of eyes. Dr. Gear lasted approximately 2 nights, which was 1 night longer than Dr. Gibson had anticipated. After 1 session alone with Harold, Dr. Gear quit. To this day, Dr. Gibson still does not know precisely what Harold did to Dr. Gear, and Dr. Gear has refused to speak about it with anyone. Harold's limbs lengthened over time, his eyes sharpened. He could appear in rooms without a door opening, in hallways before anyone could turn the corner. He would watch the staff eat, sleep, panic. Some nurses refused to enter his wing. Some tried to pretend he was not there. And yet, he always was. A janitor reported blood on the floor, wet, cold, moving, like it had a mind of its own, like it was chasing him. When turned, Harold was standing behind him. Small again, pale, staring, no words. New admissions came, screaming, clawing, shouting. Harold moved through them like a ghost. He never answered, he never joined. But the fear radiated from him, sharp as broken glass, and the new patients bent around him, obeying his gravity without a single command. A week of broken phones, hallways that ended in brick walls overnight, lights that flickered and stayed flickering. Harold walked through all of it, silent, smiling sometimes, almost imperceptibly, watching the building itself bend to his presence. Doctors quit mid-sentence. Nurses walked out during dinner service, leaving trays of half-eaten food to rot. By 18, Harold was the nucleus of the institute. The patients had begun to mirror him, quiet, menacing, attentive to nothing but him. New recruits arrived, bright-eyed and careful. Within days, they understood the unspoken rule: do not provoke Harold. Dr. Gibson's house sat at the end of a narrow street lined with identical maples that shed bark like peeling skin. It was a modest home, technically warm, technically furnished, technically lived in, but there was no life inside of it. The refrigerator hummed too loudly in the quiet kitchen. A single lamp glowed in the living room beside a chair that bore the permanent imprint of his body. The television remained unplugged. The mail stacked neatly on the corner of the dining table, unopened but carefully aligned. There were no photographs on the walls, no evidence that anyone had ever stood behind him long enough to be remembered. Dr. Gibson moved through the rooms each evening with medical precision. Coat on the hook, shoes lined parallel to the wall, a glass retrieved from the cupboard. 2 fingers of whiskey, sometimes 3. He did not cook, he reheated. He did not read, he stared. The silence in the house was not peaceful, pressed against him. The pipes ticked softly in the walls, expanding and contracting like something trying to speak. Sleep had become unreliable. When it came, it brought with it long corridors to the Longfellow Institute, stretching infinitely, doors multiplying, patients standing at the far ends of hallways with their backs turned. And Harold, always at the center of it, unmoving, watching. Gibson would wake in the dark, heart racing, unsure if he had heard a sound in the house or only remembered one from work. Sometimes he would stand in his own hallway at 3 a.m, certain the dimensions were wrong, certain that it had narrowed overnight. He drank to quiet the edges of those thoughts. It worked less each week. By morning, he would shave carefully, dress precisely, and drive to the institute as if reporting to something larger than employment, as if he were returning to a post. When he entered the Longfellow Institute that morning, the staff greeted him with strained smiles. The building felt taut, like skin pulled too tight over bone. There had been turnover again, 3 nurses gone, 2 orderlies replaced, a new security supervisor introduced with a handshake that lasted too long. No one asked questions anymore when someone left. They simply absorbed the vacancy. By mid-afternoon, the tremors began. It was subtle enough that only the water and paper cups betrayed it, trembling faintly on plastic trays. The fluorescent lights above hummed at a slightly higher pitch. Gibson noticed at first in his jaw a pressure behind his molars as if the building itself were grinding its teeth. And then the doors started to unlock. Quiet, sequential clicking down the corridors as magnetic seals engaged without instruction. Staff badges failed, the electronic system displayed green access lights that did not respond to touch. A nurse jogged towards him, breathless, eyes wide. "The phones are dead, doctor," another voice from behind him, cracking. "The security feeds are looping, they're stuck at the same timestamp." In the observation room, every monitor displayed the same empty hallway. 2:17 a.m., 2:17 a.m., 2:17 a.m. No movement, no variation. A crash erupted from the cafeteria. A low hum pulsed through the ventilation system, deep and resonant, like distant machinery beneath the earth. The sprinklers activated, yet no water fell. Instead, a fine gray dust drifted downwards, settling into hair, onto shoulders, into open mouths. It tasted metallic, bitter. The fire alarms remained silent. Chaos did not explode, it unfolded. 2 orderlies accused each other of sabotage, voices escalating to shoves. A patient wept before a stainless steel cart, insisting his reflection was moving independently of him. Emergency lights flickered, bathing the hallways in a red glow that made every face appear fried. And through it all, Gibson felt a singular absence. He turned slowly in the central corridor, watching the office scramble. The patients sway, the systems fail. Every other patient was seized by something. Panic, laughter, paralysis, devotion. Cold realization settled into Gibson's stomach. The chaos felt directional now, like a storm rotating around a hollow center. He began walking toward room 517, then quickened his pace as the noise intensified behind him. A window shattered somewhere, not from impact, but from pressure, as if the air itself had clenched. The overhead lights burst one by one in his wake, small explosions of glass and darkness. Yet the closer he came to room 517, the quieter the halls were. The hum dissipated, the red emergency light steadied back to white. The dust stopped falling. It was as if the corridor existed outside the disturbance. Gibson approached slowly now, heart hammering. The small wired glass window reflected a version of him that looked thinner, older. He placed his hand on the handle, cold, unlocked. The door opened with a long, reluctant creak. The room was immaculate. The bed neatly made, the desk empty, the window unbroken. No sign of forced exit, no disturbed vent, no displaced tile. Only the faint indentation in the mattress where someone had once been sitting. Gibson stepped inside. On the wall opposite the bed, something darker than shadow clung to the paint, shaping itself into letters just long enough for him to read. There were 4 words. "I remember your face." The words faded as he stared. Behind him, the institute exhaled. The doors disengaged, the monitors reset. The hum dissolved into the mundane buzz of electricity. Order stitched itself back together with eerie efficiency. Dr. Gibson said it out loud. Harold is gone.
Years ago, Blinds.com broke the mold and made custom window treatments easy for everyone. Over 25 million windows later, we're celebrating by giving our customers up to 50% off site-wide during our anniversary sale. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, Blinds.com has you covered. Shop online, access real design professionals, and get free samples. Thank you for 30 amazing years. Shop the anniversary sale now through March 11th and get up to 50% off site-wide at Blinds.com.
On Aspire with Emma Greed, we talk about mindset, ambition, and the work that actually moves the needle. Listen to Aspire with Emma Greed, available where you get your podcasts.